What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Artist Emancipation Podcast. Today, I have a very special little treat for you guys. One of my favorite fucking people is here with me to talk about all things artistry, all things creativity. Maria Abramovich, welcome to the Artist Emancipation. How are you? Tell us a little bit about yourself and the fucking fantastic artist that you are.
Thank you. Oh my God. I am so excited to be here. Obviously, because I love you, Shawna.
I fucking love you.
I love you. And I love talking about art. And hi, everyone who is a subscriber and a listener. Shawna's the best. And I'm happy to be here and speaking with all of you as well. So I'm a psychic. I'm a healer. I'm a mentor. I have a background in music psychotherapy. And I guess the thing to know about me is that I haven't had a life that's made a lot of sense. And so at some point, my strategic mind that also I have like the soul of an artist, but then I have like a mind that needs to search for answers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? Fuck it. Who cares? Who cares if this makes sense? It doesn't matter. All right. We're all floating around on a rock in a meat suit. Like everyone, we just need to get over it and have a good time. And so that's one thing to know about me is that I'm like kind of the irreverence and the silliness of life has been a major source of energy and fuel for me. I think people will forget that humor is medicine and like how silly all of this is can be very motivating.
Yes.
People will use it to demotivate and like suck their own soul out of their bodies and not create. Like, what's the point? But I'd be like, yeah, who cares? What's the point? Just do whatever. Like, that's the point. The
Right.
point is do whatever. And you and I talk about life this way often, you know?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of one side. And then the other thing to know about me is that I think curiosity has been another driving force of mine, and asking questions and then just being kind of like a kid about everything and being like, I mean, I don't know, let's give it a shot, you know?
Yeah.
We might as well just might as well go and like, I don't know, I've never done it before. Cool, let me try again. And that's actually how I got into intuitive work to begin with, or like how I've developed it rather. You know how I got to it. I lost my mind. That's how I got it.
Part one. Yes. One of the things I love about you is that for the listeners, if you have not listened to the previous episodes, definitely go back to at least episode 1, because I do talk a lot about Maria and the work that we did together and just how it fucking shifted my life from one end to the other. Like, and not just as a human, but as a creative. And one of the things that I love about you is that you got me to realize how important that play and how important that experimenting and just not taking things so seriously as an artist really does push you forward. You know, like it's almost like artists aren't meant to be fucking serious.
No.
Right.
Why? Where do we? Okay, the trauma made us funny and interesting, and we're supposed to go out in the world and create. Like, that's the point.
Yes.
You know? And I think people mistake structures that they're like, oh, that's like a grown-up thing or like a logical thing, right?
Yes.
And you're like, no, it's a thing so that you can move in it. Like it's like a set of tracks and you can just be the train and you can just go. You know what I mean?
Oh,
and setting up structures so that you can play within them.
Yes.
Is crucial and critical. And the other thing I think artists forget, because like we can be all like, oh my God, I'm just all alone. I'm so unique and special. Nobody understands me. And like, I'm in my own class.
Yes.
You
I'm
know?
rare.
I am a rare gem. I am within the mountain. You will never find me. And then you're like, why are you? That's why you were sad and broke. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And like, and unmotivated. And then you're like, I'm sad and broke and I'm not creating art. And that creates this vicious cycle. of me not creating and me being a miserable bitch.
Yeah.
Because when I'm not creating, I am miserable, period. I was literally just thinking this right before we went on. Shawna, of course, duh.
Because she's a psychic,
Because
guys.
I'm a psychic and I know, you know? But it was like, I remember a time when I was so worried about output and like, oh my God, I'm gonna burn out. I'm gonna feel so drained. Like, what are people gonna do? Like, I'm gonna be doing all this stuff for other people. I'm gonna like be nonstop creating. Then I'm gonna be empty.
Right.
In reality, the creating I'm so happy.
Yeah.
I'm so happy and fulfilled, and like all the areas of my life are so good because I'm like a portal and a channel, and I'm creating. I'm in this beautiful outlet, you know?
Right, right. And as artists, I think a lot of people think that we have to kind of force art to happen or force ourselves to create. And it's like when we're in that zone of doing what we truly enjoy and living the life that we're having fun in, it just happens naturally. Like you don't have to force shit out. Like it just comes to you, right? Like that's such a beautiful thing. But I want to take everybody back to like step one of energetics with you. What is creativity just in general as an artist? What is creativity?
All right. So when you think of being a person, right? Most people are like, well, being a person is like you have a house and you have like, I don't know, some vehicle, whether it's public transportation in your car, and like you have people in your life, you have a job. I'm like, no. Being a person is having a pulse, you dumb-wit. Okay? You have a brain of the Homo sapiens, okay? Yeah. And you have a pulse, all right? That is what makes you human.
Yes.
That is what makes you human. So there's like a whole laundry list of other things that we have. And the vital energy in us, okay? That the energy that our cells make, and I mean, when we study it in the lab or theoretically or whatever, in like on kind of a hard sciences way, right?
Yeah.
Just thinking cellularly all of the energy that we make cell by cell, but it's like very reductive, okay? Because there's a lot that happens with that energy. A lot that happens with that energy. When I think of what creativity is, I think of vital energy. It's literally the energy that we make in ourselves, which is infinite. Like you'll make it until you die. You make it in your sleep. You can't help but do it. It is the ticking inside of you. So when people are like, oh, my creativity, like this thing out there,
right,
outside of me, I'm like, what? No. And I don't mean it like conceptually, like, like, oh, everything is within you, like a kitschy, cheesy, cringy, it's true, but that's hard to understand. That's not very tangible.
Right.
Creativity is the energy you make naturally. Autonomically. You're autonomic nervous. You're just doing it.
I love that.
That's what it is.
Yeah. And one of the conversations early on that we had before I started this whole artist emancipation movement was like, everybody is an artist because everybody has creativity within them, right? So like, as you just described it, of course everybody is a creative because we all have fucking energy pulsing through us coming out of our human little shit bodies,
Exactly. It's like you are the artist of your life.
Yes.
You are the artist of your life.
Yes. So what would you say, because more people I shouldn't say more people, but artists, creatives, we seem to be able to access the creativity portions of ourselves more than other people do, right? What would you say is like the leading cause of like shutting off creativity or like not being able to access it as much as other people?
Trauma.
Yeah.
Trauma. Because this is the other thing, right? And you and I have talked about this too, where people want to pigeonhole creatives and creativity. They're like, oh, it's only creative if it's like an art form and what we call art.
Exactly.
Like, is an engineer not creative?
I think every fucking human is such a
It's
creative,
a
and they don't
software,
realize it.
right? Like, I don't care. Is a lawyer not creative? Is an economist not a creative? Again, it's all this separation that people, and again, you'll be like, oh, I'm an artist. I have to be poor. I have to dress a certain way. I have to look a certain way. I have to act a certain way. And it's like, well, we're all here artists. Everyone here is an artist. Everyone here is a creative. I don't care what you do for work or what you like to do.
Right.
It is irrelevant to you as a creative. And what shuts everyone down across the board, I don't care if you paint, if you knit, if you make music, if you're a graphic designer, if you're a lawyer, an economist, none of it matters. Trauma is the thing that will cut off your creative energy.
Yeah.
100%. Your vital energy. It's always going to be trauma. Excuse me.
And got it. And that, because I know my experience, and like, I got so stuck in like, I mean, you know all of this, but just for the listeners so they can know how fucked I was. Like, I got so stuck in just the work mindset of being a creative. So it was this weird balance I had going on of like, I was still accessing creativity, but it was like so repetitive and just not fulfilling at that point. Like cover photo after cover photo, like there's still design and creativity that goes into that, but it's like, was I growing as an artist? Was I growing as a human? No, I was staying stagnant. And I think that's where like my trauma really kicked in, is like, I didn't even know, until like started working with you. You're like, oh fuck baby, let's get this shit out of here, So I think that's like a really good subject to touch on with you, is like, what are kind of the signs that you see in a lot of artists that they're starting to tap out a little bit? Like for me, I often like it's imposter syndrome, like you'll back off. Burnout's another good one. But yeah, just like in terms of energy, like how would an artist start to feel themselves pulling out?
So I love that phrase that you use, because it's literally dissociation, right?
Yeah.
Like you'll think dead eyes, zombie land. You were saying like repetitive, like your brain is online because your brain is a pattern detecting device. That is what your brain does. She does it beautifully. She's super good at it. Okay. And we love that for her. And not only that, the way she detects a pattern, yes, it's in her environment, but she'll compare it to everything she's seen before.
Right.
So it's like old information, which isn't necessarily relevant in the now.
Right.
Correct?
Right.
So when you start to tap out, all right, your body, like the autonomic nervous system, continues to go. If your conscious presence is not online because trauma is infiltrating your body and blocking you out of certain areas, and you just start to kind of tap out, all right, your conscious awareness starts to go bye-bye. You'll continue going through the motions, but you'll be doing the same motions over and over and over and over again, because that's what the nervous system does.
Right.
We will poo-poo it. Like people will be like, oh my God, this is so bad, when like she's just doing her job. Like,
right.
That is what she's done, and you haven't trained her to do anything else. You haven't given her anything to work with. The only way to retrain the brain is conscious awareness.
Right.
Is presence right now. You're giving her new information.
Right.
All the time. And you're not asking her to rely on old information. So old information could be programming, like what your mom and dad said to you, right? What your primary caregiver said to you, or what they said to themselves or said to one another, or what society has said, right? Like, I mean, there's probably not a single listener here. I had never, when I went to college, I had planned on becoming an OBGYN. Like I was going into pre-med, medicine, biochem. So like my parents were not concerned about me becoming a starving artist. Okay. Nobody was worried about that. All right. That was not going to happen. And I still very much had the programming that artists are poor. Okay. I cannot stress this enough. It wasn't even my personal experience. It wasn't something that was something that was driven into me because I wanted to sit and draw all day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
My parents were like, no, this bitch wants to be rich. No, this bitch wants to help people and I'll go be a doctor. Great. You know? But most people don't have that. Most creatives haven't had that experience. So imagine that's all you've heard, or like, and your primary caregiver said that to you, and that created an emotional response that's going to be pretty big.
Right.
Because think of your values are going to create the highest emotional response in your body. And we value not just intellectually and from like a kind of ascended place, but on a biological level. You will value your primary caregiver's opinions more than anybody else's because that shit keeps you alive, honey.
Wow.
That shit is what keeps you alive and well.
Mm-hmm.
So that means you're going to value what they say, and your body's going to take that and be like, no, this is truth. This is truth. Like, I must be aligned with this because this is what's going to keep me ticking. That has been true for thousands upon thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years. Epigenetics has shown us that we will adopt the patterns of our mothers and brothers and sisters and fathers and whatever, and everyone, based off of how they were raised and how they lived. And we know up until the technological revolution, probably starting in the mid 1800s in the West, right? In some cases, at least for like white European people. And then like, we can't even begin talking about people from traditional cultures and indigenous people, right? The trauma of being displaced and sold and murdered and all of that, right? What that does to a body, the scarcity that comes into us, and how our bodies will grip onto like whatever's just going to keep us alive. So you've now inherited that, right? And people died very young. People got sick very easily. Life was hard, right?
Yeah.
And so our bodies are coded for life is hard. Life is hard. Life is hard. So when your primary caregiver says art will kill you, basically, you'll starve.
Right.
Art will get you nowhere. Your body's like, art will kill you. You will die.
Right.
You will die. And so that creates a trauma response. It creates a trauma response in you, and your body, your ego, right, is going to find any way to protect you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to repeat to you the negative affirmations, right? The negative words so that you don't do it. It's going to take your energy and zap it. It'll make you bored, distracted, suddenly tired when it's time to work. Imagine that.
Go figure.
Go figure. You have to go be creative. And you're like, oh my God, I gotta
do it.
You know?
You do it.
Who's that happened to? I mean, that's happened to me like a million times.
That was like the past 2 years of my life before I met you. So
you're like, why am I so sleepy?
I'm like,
your body's like, you must be protected at all costs. Lose consciousness now. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, relax. It's not that big of a deal.
You're like,
but like we cognitively are like, I'm not going to die if I do my work. But you don't realize that it's the trauma of thousands of years of the bodies that came before you too.
Right.
They're afraid.
Right. And that was a huge turning point for me, because even just the awareness that like my family struggled with what I wanted to do. And I wasn't even like an artist per se, right? Like, I've talked a lot about this with Maria, but like, if I would have had it my way, if I would have followed what I wanted, I would have been a fucking crazy fucking fine artist in college. That's all there was to it. But like, I really tried to appease my family's wants and needs for me, because they're like, you need to make money, right? And so I was like, okay, well, I'm going to be a graphic designer. Not to mention, they didn't even agree with the whole art school thing. That was like a push on my end, right? So it's a struggle to fucking get to the point where you're like, this is what I want, and this is solely what I want to create. So for people who are relating with what you're saying, they're like, I do have these outside impressions coming in. I'm witnessing them. I'm realizing them in my day-to-day life. Like, what are some steps that you can give them to start breaking the mold of, listening to everybody else and becoming the artist that they want to be?
Of course. So to get off the ground, right? The first thing you need, I would recommend you do is we want to build awareness. Okay. So a lot of people will be like, okay, go straight into the inner child healing, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Pause. I am recommending that, but not before building presence in your body. And there's a reason. Okay. Because, and you as creatives will all understand that it is never one size fits all. It's not one brush stroke, one way of, working the clay, one way of, playing that will make your career or do this or whatever,
Right.
create everything for you. It's always your touch, your way on it, your development of the way you do things.
Yes.
And the only way for you to know how to do that is to know how you are feeling and who you are in any given moment of any day.
Okay.
All right. This is really important. So I could send you off and be like, okay, go back to when you were 8 years old. The first time your mom told you that artists were all sluts. You know what I mean? Whatever. And you were like, wow, I can't wait to be one. But anyway, before you do that,
Mom.
no, I did it, Mom. I'm a slut. I feel like we've said that before.
That's gonna be like, that's the perfect reel right there. Like,
before you go there, I want to ensure that you have all the tools you need to make your healing and your experience.
yes. Oh my God. Yes. Yes.
All right. Because I'm a healing art. I'm like a master of the healing arts, the healing arts. Like that's what I love to work with. That's my artistry. And I know that every creative has their own healing art. All
Oof.
right.
Yeah.
And their own way of amplifying their energy. Right. And for many artists, when we're talking about the arts, it's creating that, like their particular form of art. So
Yes.
that same kind of understanding of how you would create something, you have to understand how you would heal something within yourself.
Yo.
All right.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Right. Right. Like, Shawna, you have a specific, like, how you draw, how you create, how you envision, your process.
Yes.
Okay. Healing isn't that different. All right. I mean, you and I have had sessions together and that for you, the visuals are big, right? You know that the way I say things it'll land with you because you're going to see it. Like there's something like you get the vision of how it was or how it worked or whatever, and it lands in your body.
Yeah.
So I want you building presence, people. That's the first thing. Bringing yourself back into your body and realizing, where do I create from? What is the media? Like, what is the channel of inspiration that I get? Is it visual? Right?
Right.
Is your inner vision a really strong sense for you? Are you like hearing guidance? Are you hearing words? Are you hearing music? Is it audiation? And I'm using these clinical terms for what I would consider intuitive senses, but there are clinical terms to them because they're real people.
Because they're real, guys.
Very well studied. Okay.
Yeah.
So knowing what do you feel it in your body when you're like, ooh, like, oh my God, I know what I'm gonna do. I know that this happens to you too. You're like, like you can feel it.
Yeah.
When when an idea has landed, you're like, yep, she's here.
Yep.
Right? We want you to build that kind of presence. Is there a knowing? Do you get like this is true, this is a yes for me? Like you just have like a gut feeling of a knowing it? Building that, right? And how you do that is trigger them with memories, okay? Familiar, positive memories. Those are the best way, right? So you'll be like, an early life memory is good, like a long-term memory. So you'd be like, oh my God, I loved playing. If there was like this honeysuckle bush at my dad's place that was right next to one of my neighbors. Do you want to hear what my neighbors' names were?
Fuck yeah.
There were two older couples. There were the tulips and the clouds. You think I'm lying?
Beautiful.
I lived between the tulips and the clouds, and I was always at their homes, just like wandering in. Now that I have my children, I get how they are the way they are. I was just wandering the street, walking into strange people's homes. not my neighbors, but I would like garden with them, and they would like make me tea and whatever. And I would play in this honeysuckle bush, like right next to the tulips. And because they had a garden, and I felt like a little fairy, and I
Oh,
can like close my eyes and I can see it, and I can smell the honeysuckle and taste it because I would like be eating it. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And I remember like being under like and feeling the scraping of the little twigs, and like hearing the sounds of the cars going by. And so I'll activate as many of these as I can, and it like heightens your senses, and that brings presence, but in a positive way. We often think of like building presence as having to be like, oh, car crash,
Right.
right? Oh, stock market crash. Oh, illness. Like something horrible has to happen, right? And artists are often stuck in this loop of like general horrible things or difficult moments, like drug use, whatever. I mean, there are themes here in
Yes.
our community.
Yes.
It's true. And I'm like, can we invite presence in a positive way by using our senses, which we have been just beautifully, miraculously granted and gifted with, in this like weird ass meat suit, to have access to like so much beauty.
Oh God, yeah.
So activating these senses with familiar long-term memories, or it could be familiar and short-term, like something you do every day. Like if you eat the same breakfast every day, you're like, I eat the same freaking oatmeal and coffee every day of my life. You can see it, you can taste it, you can smell it, right? You can
Yeah.
hear it in the microwave or on the stove. Activating all those senses and bringing that presence in your body as often as you can. This is an exercise you can do anywhere. You could be sitting on the toilet. You could be driving. You could be doing anything and
I
do
always
it.
say my best ideas come on the treadmill and on the toilet. So double T's.
When things are in motion. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Right?
Oh, baby, I know what you mean. Oh my
So
God.
you activate that, and believe it or not, this is super helpful to bring all these beautiful feelings in your body, which resources you. Because another story artists love to tell is that they're depleted. And I'm like, then resource yourself, bitch. Give yourself, like, use your vital energy for something that will lift you up, that broadens your perspective, that brings more presence in your life, that brings more energy into your body, right? More presence, so you can access more of that energy, rather. And that way, when you go back and do the healing work, right? Like, let's say we want to address our identity as an artist.
Mm-hmm.
That's like the first thing. Then you want to go back to all your first impressions of art, what art was, right?
Yeah.
The first time you realized like you couldn't put a pen down and like you could not stop doodling in class, right? The first time you went to your choir concert or whatever. Like, I'm a musician, right? So
Yeah.
I like remember being in the World Children's Choir and loving choir practice after school. Like, I loved it, right? I remember putting on shows with my sister. I remember these are these core memories, right? And you go back to those memories, and I would start with the positive ones because we want to resource ourselves. So we start with the positive ones, and we let that be a predominant way of feeding ourselves, and then you can start and look at the ones that didn't feel so good. And you can take yourself back to those moments and get clarity with all that presence and all those senses that you've activated. And then a really good, really easy way, it's not easy, but a good way to release that is either a forgiveness exercise or some kind of inner child integration where you're having the older self hold the younger self.
And that's truly one of the most powerful things I've ever experienced. Maria was at an event called Meant for Magic with Andrea. They all know about her too. But that was one of the things that we did there. And I've never gotten to, because I've done a few with you, but I've never gotten to the point where like I could actually like hold my younger self and just be like, you got this, kid, like that's so fucking powerful. And like, especially coming from an artist view, like, because one of my things growing up was that I did feel very lonely. So a lot of my art was because I was alone and I was doing things to make myself happy, you know? So like
But look
going
at that
back,
part.
right.
That's how you were creating.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
literally how you're creating, alone in your house, just ticky, 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 ticky.
Yeah. And then fast forward to fucking 32, I was doing the same exact shit, right? So like to go back to her and be like, you don't have to be alone. You don't have to do this on your own. It's all right. You know, like that was just, it sounds so fucking simple, but like I have tears in my eyes right now, but it's literally one of the most powerful things I've ever done for myself as an artist.
I was talking to a client this morning on a call, and I was like, the key to everything is knowing what your inner child would have wanted mommy to do or daddy
Right.
to make you feel better whenever you feel a void. Like if there was a point, like anytime when you were a kid, right? And you felt lost or a loss, it's like that void, right? What would fill that void?
Yeah.
And it's very rarely a thing, okay? Because a thing can't fit, that's dense. It's a feeling. It's like a sensation in the body that's going to like make you feel differently. All right. Like a thing, it's like thinking your feelings. You can't think your feelings. You can only feel them.
Mm.
You think thoughts, you feel feelings. Imagine that. Right. And I know I'm like, oh, genius. So a thing can't really do that. It's really the feeling that a thing might give you. Right.
Right.
And so as a parent, also, like I have to watch myself because sometimes like your kid feels sad or you set a boundary or something, you know, and you just want to give them what they want so that they can get what they're looking for.
Right.
But what they're looking for may go far beyond the thing that they want.
Oof. Yeah.
Right. So, you know, my son on Sunday, we go roller skating on Sundays. So
Yeah.
fun. So much fun. We have a blast. There's an arcade in the back. And usually we go with friends, and like our friends don't really go to the arcade. My daughter will go, Ava will go and like pretend to play on everything because she's so little and she doesn't care.
So fucking
Just
cute.
wanders around asking people to give her coins also.
And they give them to her. She
And
gets
they
them.
give them to her, and she always leaves with toys, and I don't know how it happens.
Charmer. She's a charmer.
She had a little duck, tiny little duck this time. I'm like, how? Where did you get it? Tiny ducky, my ducky. It was so cute. And Leo was like, Mommy, I want a toy. Mommy, I want to play in the arcade. Mommy, I want... And like, he wanted it because he saw his friends get money from their parents and they were doing it. And he wanted to have that same experience.
Right.
And I didn't have cash. And that wasn't the plan. And I was just like, we're not going to do that today. Right. But I totally understand. And I see that you're feeling upset about it. So, like, I'm going to hold you and I'm going to make a plan. Because that's really what they want. They want to know that you can execute on something that they need.
Right.
I can't if I'm not going to give it to you right now because like that's not how I create in this life. We like in my family, we don't create in response to what somebody else is doing.
Yeah.
Okay? We get an idea and we're going to do it our way.
Oof.
So in my way, it's not going to be that shitty arcade in the back of skate time. Okay? Like, you want to do an arcade day? Let's go with your best friend. We're going to make a whole day of it. We'll go to Dave & Buster's. We'll go all out. You know what I mean? Like, let's do this, baby.
Yeah.
Right? And so I said that. I was like, you want to do it? Let's plan it. And we made a plan. And then, like, we moved on. But he had a space to have his emotions. And this is what most of us want. It's like, you want mommy or daddy, right? Or whoever your primary caregiver was to look at you and be like, I hear you. I get it. Like, your feelings are real and valid, and I'm seeing them and I'm hearing them. And I'm going to tell you that I've got you. Whether we're going to go through with this or not, I've got you. And I'm going to create a plan because I'm the adult. I'm providing the structure to help us move forward. So most artists who are feeling burnt out, like they can't create, they have a lot of resistance to creating or whatever, and people will tell them, well, you like the structures. It's like, yes, there isn't a plan, a space, a place for you to have that motivation, but there's also a backlog of emotions that haven't been addressed, right? So you have to validate that. You have to kind of work with that and work through that And from there, have structures, because like I've said this to Shawna, I am a person who I need somewhere to aim to,
Mhm.
right? I'm a very busy person. I'm a single mom of two very young kids, right? And so having times for me to move in is important. I used to feel really stifled by that. I'd be like, I don't want anyone telling me what to do and when. I don't want to have a deadline. You know what that was? That was an unresolved trauma.
Yeah.
That was unresolved need to rebel because I didn't trust anyone or any kind of structure. When you don't trust structure, your parents didn't take care of you, honey, or you didn't feel taken care of by your parents
Yeah.
because they didn't provide the structure for you. My
Oh,
parents did as best as they could. And in some ways, they really showed up. And in a lot of ways, they could not. And I say could not because they really couldn't.
right. Right. And
Okay.
I think a lot of people like get it twisted too, that they're like, well, I didn't have a shitty childhood, so I have no trauma. And it's like, oof.
Irrelevant.
Right.
Irrelevant.
Right.
Irrelevant. That is socialized logic, honey. And I'll tell you, children, if you've spent any time with them, they have zero logic. There's no logic. I was watching the Argentina soccer game with my son last night, and he's like, Mommy, can I go play with them? I promise I'll play really well. It's like he's like, next time we're gonna go. Let's go. I want to go play with them because he's 5.
I
I'm
love
like,
it.
I'm like, yes, that makes perfect sense that you would play for the Argentine National League in Copa America as a 5-year-old, and we would just like show up casually, and they'd be like, hey, yeah, come on in. Like that is the person running your life inside of you right now. Like you're adult you, but you're carrying every age that you've ever had inside of you.
Yes.
So like sometimes the 5-year-old is running the ship, and like he thinks he can go play soccer with the national Argentine team, just casually walking into Chicago Stadium. Like, hey, no, that's not how it works. So that same kind of energy, it's like, no, it can't work. You can't just be like, fuck off, and then be happy and create. You know, you have
Oh,
to process that and then have a system that you
yes.
can trust and you can lean into.
Yes. Oh my God. Maria, see, this is what happens every time I talk with Maria. My mind just gets blown. I literally texted her this the other day. I said, you say things to me, I thought like my mind explodes. It takes me 3 days to understand fully like what you meant. And then I come back and I deliver the results.
And then something comes out of it
It's
immediately.
something always comes out of it. Yeah. No, and Maria, I just want to give you praise right now because you've truly changed my life as a human, as an artist, as a creative. You're amazing. You're amazing. You've held me, you've been there, you've guided me through so many things. And I just want to open up my podcast to you, all the artists listening. Like, if you're struggling with some of the things that we have talked about and you want help with the deeper parts of it that maybe you don't understand, like I didn't fucking know what any of this shit was a year ago. I'm like, excuse me, you want to read my energy? What?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
please reach out to Maria. I'm going to let you talk about, kind of what you're doing because you're doing some amazing things in the online space right now, including your own podcast that is about to launch. So please let my listeners know how they can find you, how they can consume your content and potentially work with you.
Sure. So I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. You can find me on Facebook. I'm Maria Abramovich, and my Instagram handle is Maria X Abramovich. I have lots of different ways you can work with me. If you've come through the podcast, you're like, hey, I heard you on the podcast. You let me know and you want to do a one-on-one session. I do readings that have energy work in them as well, healings. And Shawna can tell you that I'm working with your energy body. So let's say that vital energy we were talking about, we're clearing out anything that is not you, right? So that's anything that's been shut down because of programming, anywhere that there's stagnancy, any energies that aren't yours. So let's say coding, like epigenetic coding or socialized coding, right? In the body, like let's say like stories the body's holding on to.
Yeah.
And I get rid of all that and I align it to like what you are actually meant to be. How
Yes.
you're meant to be operating.
And it's fucking insane. So fucking do it. If you're like even a little bit, I can't speak highly enough of Maria, but
So we can do that. I have obviously the podcast, which is free to consume. I have meditations that you can purchase. I have an inner child meditation that you can purchase as well, a future self one that will guide you through these experiences. And again, it's something that you can get kind of offline and you use and you can stream whenever you need. And then I have group offerings too. So right now I have one that is great for creatives, but it's basically a way of using your energy to create. And I've got people with a specific goal in mind, and I'm taking them through this amazing energy process that also has a lot of structure in it, like what you would do, what is the exercise you would do to clear something out or to expand your energy or to enhance your focus or whatever it is, because I see everything as a creative endeavor. Everything. I don't care if it's a business endeavor, if it's a relational endeavor, if it's an artistic endeavor, it's all creative. So you knowing what your energy is and you removing everything that isn't that, and then you honing your focus is basically all you need.
wow. Yeah.
Basically it. So
Yeah.
I'm
So
taking them through that process now.
yeah, so Maria's a fucking genius, basically. Go work with her. But I could talk to you for 17 more hours. You guys should hear our phone calls, but I love you. You are truly amazing. Thank you so much for being on this podcast. Any and all links I'll link under the description on this podcast, but any closing thoughts on your end that you'd like to share?
The world needs art. We all need art. We all need art. It's all the good work, all of it. And if there's any part of you that's telling you that whatever art media that you create and use is not what the world needs, then I'm telling you, I am telling you, as a psychic, as a person who reads energy, as a person who knows what is going on in the world right now, it is 100% on purpose. That desire is on purpose. That flow in you, that fuel in you, that creativity, that innovation, all of that that's in you, it's on purpose. And you are meant to pursue it. All that you may require right now is some structure, and not like in the Victorian education kind of way. Like, all right. I mean, we need to break down what's getting in your way. We need to see how to hone your focus. We need to get your confidence, and like all the things that you learn in this podcast.
Yeah.
Right? All the things that Shawna's talking about. These are structures that will support you, right? We need a brain that has different kinds of thoughts and a body that understands things differently so that you can use all that genius and give it to yourself and to the world. Because when you give it to yourself, you give it to the world.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I can't top that. So, guys, thank you for tuning in. Again, check out Maria. She is just an amazing human being, and she will help you immensely, whatever journey you may be on. But that is it for today's episode. We will catch you next week.
Love you.
Love you.